Boom. And we are live with another episode of the Broadwater Banter podcast. My name is Jared Seymour.
My name is Joey Cates.
It is Joey Cates, and we got a good show for you in the studio. The gentlemen from the DMR are back. We're going to be talking about artificial reefs. I was told to say MS Creel and not Snapper, but we're going to be talking about Snapper, so it's going to be a good show. But before we jump into the conversation, we have to keep the people that keep the lights on for us, help the people, promote the people.
There you go.
I slip up every now and then. Dr. Robbie Williams over at Southern Magnolia Smiles, man. If you're looking for a great local dentist, you can look him up on the socials at Southern Magnolia Smiles on Facebook and Instagram. When you're ready to book that consultation, man, you can give them a shout at 228-215-1202. Get them pearly whites shined up and looking good, and tell them Broadwater sent you. If you need legal representation, Taylor & Cox Law Firm is right here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. They are in Jackson County, George County, and Greene County. They specialize in felonies, misdemeanors, DUI, BUI, family law, divorce, child custody. Anything you need somebody to fight for you in the courtroom, they can take care of it. Taylor & Cox Law Firm. You can give them a call at 228-696-0111. And again, tell them Broadwater sent you. Forever Young, Men and Women's Health. That's our buddy Kendrick right here. Their motto is bringing medicine, health, and exercise together to help men and women live their best lives. It's about to be beach bod season, so if you're trying to move around,
Vulcan season's over with.
Prioritize your health and get ready for, I don't know, swimming, pool running, do whatever. Just feeling better, man. Forever Young Men and Women's Health is the one for you. Give them a shout. They can do some blood work on you and get you back optimized and feeling better. They specialize in testosterone replacement for men and women. Go check them out. Give them a call at 228-363-6623. And again, tell them Broadwater sent you. And our buddy Brandon Webb, man, he just opened up, did his grand opening not too long ago. He's over there on the Cedar Lake exit with Cedar Lake Power Equipment Sales and Service. He's slinging lawnmowers, weed eaters. He's extremely knowledgeable. They got, like it says in the name, the service part of it as well. If you got a lawnmower already, you need it worked on. That grass is growing, and it's time to start, paying attention to the yard and getting it looking pretty. So you can give them a call at 228-206-0960 or just stop by. Like I said, they're right there off of the Cedar Lake exit, off of the interstate. Go in there and talk to them. Check out their Facebook page on all those businesses. Give them a like, give them a share, and tell everybody about them, because without those guys, we can't do the show, and they keep us rolling. So we appreciate them as well. Gentlemen, thank y'all for being returning guests on both of you, correct? Do I have that right?
Yep.
Returning guests? Okay. Thank y'all for stopping by. Did you tell me it's a state holiday today?
It is.
And they made you come do this, hang out with us on your
terrible.
holiday.
Yeah.
That's awful.
We had crews go out today. We're always out there doing something.
Okay.
I was wondering why all the government buildings were shut down.
Yeah,
today.
that's why. You had to go see your parole officer?
No. I just had to go past it, going to school.
Okay. All right. Just making sure. Anyway, gentlemen, like we always like to do on these episodes, if you could please introduce yourself to the people that might be catching you on the show for the first time and what your role is at the DMR, and then we'll get into some topics here.
All right. So Trevor Moncrief, the Marine Fisheries Director for the department. Basically deal with everything fisheries at this point.
There you go. You got promoted, and now he's doing his thing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I'm Travis Williams. I'm the Artificial Reef Director at DMR. Anything and everything with our artificial reefs.
There you go.
Sweet.
There you go. All right. So how do we skin this cat?
We start with the reefs first. We don't need to go to the black hole yet.
All right, not yet.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
let's see what the comments are. They already lighting up? I don't even know. Let's see. No,
well,
not yet, but it's coming. All right.
So I have heard that we have got a lot of stuff going on with inshore reefs and offshore reefs, about to do a whole bunch of stuff, right? Am I correct with that?
Yep. I think last time I was on here, I hope to come back with some good news. I'll touch on a little bit of that here in a few minutes.
We got to get an assistant that can look this shit up and tell us when the last time these guys were on and like all that kind of cool information that we just don't do.
And for me, I know it's been over a year.
That'll work.
But so what we've had going on in the past year, as far as artificial reefs go for the state of Mississippi, we've done a few vessels. And that started with probably when I left off was there was a large tug with the Bay Pest sculpture.
Yeah, the road.
That went out.
You went out on that one, didn't you?
Yeah. We went out and watched it sink.
So we did that. We had a couple vessels after that when we worked with Gulf Fishing Banks. Shrimp boat, Captain Ben, and there was a Bell Brew vessel that went on FH-14. So we've had the most recent offshore stuff has been vessel deployments. And then last year we started working with the Secretary of State's office. They are basically revamping the old Broadwater Marina there in Biloxi.
Okay.
So they put in for some funds to kind of bring that place back to life.
As a marina?
as I believe a marina, a green space. They have big plans for it, so I think there's going to come in different phases.
Okay.
Now, at one point, the city of Biloxi had made an announcement that some casino entertainment, company or whatever was going to come in and put some massive investment, at least
on the north
side. Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't know if they was going to get the marina side as well or not.
I think the marina side stays with the state ownership.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly sure what the plans are for that. I just know that they're, phase one, they're starting. They removed a lot of some of the capping on the bulkhead, replaced some of the, piling.
Yeah.
The whole roadbed structure is new now. So I think, like I say, the next phase will be some type of construction going on out there.
I know they got the fences up with the like wind barrier, trash barrier, and they've been doing some kind of work out there for a little while.
It got a little shady there
it
for
was.
a while.
Oh, yeah, the location.
Yeah, well, and then the people that were down there.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. There's some vagrants down there.
Yeah, they did. They closed it off when they started construction. Well, anyway, the Secretary of State's office reached out to us, kind of saying, hey, what does this material look like? Is it something y'all be interested in for artificial reef stuff? And so we went down there and looked at it, all concrete stuff that we accepted, and we found a place at Katrina Key out south of Deer Island.
Okay.
So we were able to put several barge loads on the west end.
Right.
We were able to cap some of the old stuff we had out there that have subsided over the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of brought it back up to the elevation that, was permitted. Kind of really a win-win project for everybody. Kind of, like I say, it was a good reuse of the material. And then, like I say, it helped us out with Katrina Key, little fishing, little island protection, little aquaculture protection.
So did the extension already happen? Has that already happened? Because I heard it was going to be extended even more.
We're working on that.
Okay.
We're currently going through the procurement process on that.
Right.
So that is still an ongoing project. We do still have the funding for that. It's in the future coming.
Right.
Just bear with us and we'll get there. But
that's a cool reef because it's close. People can fish it. You don't have to get beat to death. It's relatively close, I should say.
It holds some good fish.
It does. And I'm assuming for y'all's angle, people don't realize distance is money, right? To get that that stuff out there, it's not easy.
That's right. It is cost saving. That is the longest artificial reef we have in Mississippi. So I mean, it's over a mile and a half long right now currently.
Okay.
So the plans are to extend it for another 2.5 miles.
Sweet.
So it's permitted. So it does have big plans for the future. So yeah.
It's also protecting those off bottom oyster
to some
beds
degree.
on the back. Yeah.
And that's what it was originally permitted. To be honest with you, it was originally permitted as a breakwater.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I didn't know that.
We were able to adopt it into the artificial reef program.
And the fish just so happen to hang out on there, and we catch them off of it.
That's right.
That was a double win.
Good luck. Yeah.
So yeah, that's that occurred last month. Well, we worked on it last year, trying to get all that lined up. That obviously took several months, and then beginning of this year is when we put that out, January and February. So they wrapped that up, like I say, about a month and a half, 2 months ago. Also last year we started working on a project with Bollinger Shipyard out of Pascagoula.
Okay.
They reached out to us about they had a pipe production facility line over there that basically come to the end of its life.
Right.
They large concrete pillars, pilings, ballasts that they had. Same thing. We went and looked at that material.
Perfect fish habitat.
Absolutely. Large, probably 45-foot long beams, 4 foot tall, approximately 50,000 pounds each.
Wow.
Okay.
So, I mean, they were 25-ton beams. Yeah, they're substantial. We started that project about a month ago. So we've done a little over half of that material's gone out at this point.
And where's it going?
So he's done several deployments on FH2.
Okay.
And then we've actually, what I was going to introduce later on, we've done a couple deployments on a new artificial reef site, South Mississippi.
That's a secret. Don't tell anybody.
Till the end. Yeah, we're gonna give all the coordinates and where everything's at. So
getting there.
One thing real quick I'll touch on. Probably not our audience, but I know when we posted some things about the reefs, Joey, when you posted the boat the pokey boat that we sunk. A lot of people, again, probably not here, probably not local, but complaining like you're littering. What are you doing to the environment? Can you just touch on that for anybody that might be scrolling through this video? And see that?
Absolutely. No, there are a lot of regulations before we can put things out. It has to, we have to get a permit through the Army Corps of Engineers. It's got to meet EPA standards, things of that nature. There are a lot of criteria, especially for vessels, of materials that have to be removed. There are things that can't go out there.
Yeah. It's an extensive thing to do.
All the fluids are drained. Everything's out. It's basically just the whole of the shit.
Right. Anything that's
and it's a costly process. To get to that. So anything that's petroleum-based products has to be removed. Right. So anything wire, wood, glass.
Why would
fuels.
you litter like that? That's what they were saying. We're
Yeah.
like, lady, or whoever guy, like, you don't really realize like the amount of time they put into that damn thing just to sink it. It ain't, they just
No,
drag it out there and drop it.
It's typically by the time it goes out, it's bare steel.
Yep.
And that's really all that's allowed, steel or aluminum.
Yep. And then the salt water will do her thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I also heard that y'all are going to start touching up some of these old reefs. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, and we've done that with some of the Bollinger stuff, some of the stuff that I just spoke about. That on FH2, that's gone on 3 or 4 sites now that we've done that we've added to existing rubble piles that are out there. So yeah, we are touching some of these old spots up. There's not, and it's not that there was a lot of subsidence. It's just that there wasn't a lot of material there.
Right.
And the last few years, we've actually found that a lot of the fish productivity we see on larger piles of material. So we're starting to add and try to make things a little bit bigger than just single small
drops. Yeah. Small drops. It's almost like you could put them all together. You know what I'm saying? If you just made one big gigantic fish haven out there, we'd be good to go, right?
So yeah, that's part of what we've looked at certain sites that, like I say, that were recognized earlier from previous side scan and data that we have mapping that shows that, hey, it may just be like a single pile of, just an old rubble pile that has maybe subsided some, but we'll go back and add to try to increase that surface area and increase that footprint. So we are working on that. What we had, that's since the last time we talked, you brought up inshore. I'll kind of transition to that and then we'll get offshore. I'll work it all in. But we finished up an inshore reef assessment, which included some side scan and some biological monitoring on our inshore reefs. Once we completed that, we were able to last year go back out for another project proposal, which included a complete, basically, reef enhancement for all of our inshore reefs. So we have 63 inshore reefs that are low profile, oyster shell, limestone, crushed concrete. The new proposal, a project that's gotten funded, is for us to basically go through all 63 of those and add 2 acres of 3-inch limestone to each one of those 63 sites across South Mississippi. So all 61 sites will be enhanced with this project. Value was probably, when we put it together, around $5.2 million to do that. So
where's those funds coming from?
So that the funds come from National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. Their Gulf Environmental Benefit Funds from the BP oil spill.
Okay. So
this was the project in total was put into, basically, this is called Phase 2. It's inshore and offshore artificial reef enhancement for Mississippi. It was a $12.3 million project. $5.2 million of that is for strictly construction of the inshore artificial reefs. So that'll occur probably later on this fall, later into next year. We're working on getting the actual funding agreement in place. We do have the intent to award, so we're starting to move forward with certain portions of that project. And then once that's the construction or the enhancement is complete, then we'll monitor those sites for a couple years through some different methods. We'll side scan them again, kind of get that footprint laid back out. So we do have, like I say, some enhancement coming for all of our inshore stuff very shortly.
Which way is it starting? Are y'all doing east to west, west to east, or y'all just doing them randomly?
It's probably going to be up to the contractor. When it comes in, it's probably going to be dependent on weather, tides, certain things, when all that comes in. Because some of these are in a little bit deeper water than others. Some of them are shallow, so it's all probably going to be dependent on that.
Okay.
It'll probably come from Alabama, is typically where the material comes from. It comes down through Mobile Bay and comes out. So he may work east to west. He may work west to east. I'm not sure.
The question I had was you mentioned this, but I'd like to get a little more clarification on it, or like explain to the audience what you mean by that. When y'all do these, did you say biologic assessment? Is that how you worded it? Can you go into a little more detail on that? What that means when y'all go take a look at that on a reef?
Yeah. So we'll do typically we do monthly monitoring on several of our inshore artificial reefs. Those include net surveys that we do. We do water sampling as well when we're out there. It's a standardized biological sampling survey where we basically sit there for an hour. Everything that's collected in the net, we bring it in, weigh it, measure it, age it, sex it, things of that nature, and we store that data just in-house.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at on that is you do that per reef. Is that correct? Per artificial reef?
We don't do it on all 61. We
Okay.
take a subset.
Okay.
So,
They're essentially what we've described in some of our previous podcasts when it comes to the fishery independent monitoring, when it comes to fin fish, right? Standardized sampling, standardized gear, time specific limits, that kind of stuff, to try to gather some level of abundance metrics. And Travis's team took it a step further a couple of years ago and actually compared the catch on artificial reefs versus non-reefs, essentially mud.
Because that's all we got.
And the answer is what you thought it was.
Exactly
I mean,
what you
typically
would
you're
think.
catching more recreationally
Funny how that
desirable
works.
species on the reef.
Yeah.
So
I guess what I was getting at though too is that my point is when we put this stuff, y'all put this stuff out. You don't just throw it out there and then just throw more stuff. You're monitoring this. You're trying to see what works, what the fish like, what you know what I'm saying, like what structure's better than others. Is that correct?
And not only is it a priority of at least the department, right? Because we want to see success. We want to be able to see species composition, colonization, all that kind of stuff. But it's also tied into the actual funds that we're getting, which Travis listed are a substantial amount.
Yeah.
And given that it is a substantial amount of award being given, there is the criteria to monitor afterwards to basically determine success on whether this kind of funding should continue for these projects.
Okay. Yeah. So am I hearing you right? When you get these types of grants or whatever the term is for that money, does it come in the paperwork or what's written in there? Like, hey, if we give you this, you have to monitor this and then report back to us as to whether or not it worked?
Yeah. Almost all the NIFWIF ones have some post-monitoring associated with them.
I like that.
They can't just give you this stuff and say, all right.
Yeah, we threw a bunch of rocks out. We don't really know.
Yeah.
We think it's good.
All limestone, right? Have y'all found limestone
this is all
is
limestone.
the best?
Yeah, it's going to be the most cost efficient,
right?
And get the job done.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's going to be best bang for the buck.
Yep.
Now, do these reef fish, do they like more structure than what limestone, for lack of a better term, produces? You know what I mean? Like stuff that's not just flat to the ground?
So he's talking about the inshore reefs with this one, and in general, it's not really your reef-associated species in the classical sense. It's, I mean, a lot of your inshore species, you got a mix of sheep's head, black drum, essentially everything across the board. So
they're cooler with that.
Yeah, and it's permit driven. The reason why it's limestone low relief, that's what you could get the permit for. You can't just throw a half sunk vessel 1 foot below the water.
And we talked about that. They have to have you have to have clearances so much feet, inches, whatever below the water line. Also, Mississippi, as you mentioned, what did you say? Reef versus mud. We have a lot of mud out here. Things sink, so you have to take that into account when you put stuff out, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's let the secret out. I'm hearing there's a new fish haven coming out. Can we talk about that, or you want to go back first?
Let me get one more. I got one more to get in.
Go ahead.
We do have a new a part of that project that I just mentioned, NIFWIF funded. There is the inshore portion. We're actually went a step farther. We're looking at another reef out near the Barrier Islands. It's going to be on the north side of Petty Boy. This will be a new reef. We're currently in the permitting process for that one. It's going to be a 15-acre site, about 19, 20 foot of water, about 2 miles north of Petty Boy, but on the east side of the state. So we have that kind of line from Cat Island. We have 911 in front of Ship Island. We have FH10 north of Horn. So this is going to put something further on the east side of the state, north of Petty Boy. So very similar makeup to the rest of those permitted areas. But it's going to be the same thing. We're going to look at probably a 4 or 5 foot artificial reef module, something that's constructed, material design. But this project funds. It's going to fund that. It's going to fund the survey, maritime cultural resources survey that's going to be required by the Corps, and it's going to fund the construction. And then, like I said, an additional 2 years of monitoring out there as well.
When you say module, do you mean like those concrete pyramids that I'm used to seeing? Like I would think like more for like Alabama. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, it'll be some type of design. We don't have really anything set in stone yet. But yeah, it'll be something. Once again, there'll be parameters based on the permit. We'll have clearances, but we'll kind of give a design that fits within all those specifications.
Yeah, and then
go ahead.
In Travis's world, you kind of have two things that exist. You have materials of design, and you got materials of opportunity.
Gotcha.
So they're basically constantly scanning for both. Sometimes the money that we get requires us to use modules. Sometimes it's preferred. Other times it's out in the open. The materials of opportunity certainly are preferred in many cases because they're brought to us to try to go out. So that's what he was talking about with modules. Basically, you got a material that's designed, and then you got one that's just
Nobody's knocking the material of opportunity,
No.
right? You
We'll take anything.
sometimes you got to take what you can get. You know what I mean?
Do we have a timeline, ballpark on when that's?
So if we get the funding, we'll have to do that survey. Survey is probably gonna take several months. It's gonna be costly for the survey.
Right.
Several months, and then when we get that, it'll be at least a year and a half probably before we start construction.
Yeah.
So I would anticipate well over a year for us to get the permit.
But it's coming.
Yeah.
There you go.
I know our water is brown, hence the name of the show. But I wondered, have y'all ever thought about, or would it be possible to do like sponsorships on the reef where you like pay money to the DMR that goes towards conservation or whatever, but you like put your name on a reef or your logo
Well,
or
it's
something
kind of like
that?
what Bay Pest Control did with that barge.
But on y'all's stuff.
I mean, that would be probably a legislative, approved question. I don't know how involved that gets.
You know what I mean? I'd love to put a Brownwater logo on one of those big modules or something like that. Nobody ever see it, but it'd be fun.
And everyone, they bring up private reefs, wanting private reefs.
Yeah.
And that's not something that's in the ballpark for our program. It would, that would have to go through the state legislature.
Okay. All right. We do have a Brownwater sticker on the Pokey boat, though.
Yeah.
So we're close.
Sunk, yeah. Well, the private reefs now with the relief shading, like nothing's really private anymore. You know what I'm saying?
You're
I could sit on my
You're
couch and
Yeah.
be like, oh, look,
You're
there's
right.
something right there. Let me go fish
With that and with, radar now, and if you're fishing a private reef
Yeah,
and they
I
ride
can
by
zap
and ping
you,
you,
yeah.
It's tough. It makes it very tough.
Yeah.
And
That's the
like I
world we
say,
live in.
You're right. Everybody likes the technology until it comes
Until
to
the
that.
other guy uses it to get to where you're
Catching
at.
my
That's right.
snap.
That's right.
For sure.
All right.
So the transition that we did the inshore, we did the kind of the midshore, near shore, and then now offshore. So there is a portion of that with this project.
Mm-hmm.
It's $4.5 million that we have to build offshore artificial reefs. So I have a staging site in Gulfport. This is where we collect the materials of opportunity. Typically concrete pipes, culverts, manholes, boxes. And then recently we've been working with the power company, getting some concrete power poles.
Okay.
So I've got a full yard out there. That $4.5 million is primarily going to be used to clear that off right now. And then any remaining funds on that, we'll look at materials of design to go out. So that's actually, and kind of to transition into that and the good news, we're going to focus most of that work on 2 new artificial reef sites that the state recently acquired the permits for offshore. We're currently calling those the Mississippi Reef Complex 1 and 2. So Mississippi Reef Complex 1 is adjacent to FH13. It's on the west side of 13. It's approximately 11,500 acres. It pretty much goes almost to FH1 on FH1's eastern side and almost to FH2 on its southern side. So it kind of fills it's a large box there, fills in the western side of 13, and then Mississippi Reef Complex 2 is adjacent to FH13 but on the south side. And it's over 5,000 acres, 5,075 acres, I think is what it is. So it's 16,575 acres total, the 2 areas combined, which is almost 26 square miles of newly permitted artificial reef.
That's huge, though, right? I mean, that's a big announcement.
I'm gonna ask the question because I already know it's coming. So the first one's gonna be in state waters.
The northern portion of that should be in state waters.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say at least probably we've looked at it. The northern quarter of that is going to be close to being in state waters. So yeah.
Charter boats, you're gonna be like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that brings up a question. What I just heard you say, like, so if it splits between state and federal waters, do we have anything out there like that now? Where that seems a little bit.
FH13 and 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Split
All right.
Or both
state,
now.
federal.
There you go.
So yeah, there'll be some, like I say, there'll be probably some comments on that, and like I say, we'll work to address that. I don't really think it's been an issue, as far as citations go in the past. So I think everyone's been playing by the rules. Mm-hmm. So we haven't really, heard much on that end. So
and that exact question came up at the commission meeting. So it's definitely on our radar to try to make sure it's denoted and on our website and accessible so that we can try to answer that question.
And all
to the
these
public.
reefs are on there, right? You have a map for the inshore reefs, you have a map for the offshore reefs, and everything on their website.
Yeah, the maps and coordinates are all on our website. So yeah, that you brought it up. About 26 square miles of new bottom. All the fish havens currently that we have, FH1 through 14, they're about 15,000 acres. So we've doubled. The state of Mississippi has just doubled the size of our artificial reef footprint with the addition of these 2 new sites.
Do you know the answer to this? How long has it been since we had new territory, so to speak?
So as far as offshore, this is the newest I've heard since I've been there. I've been with the agency for 20 years.
Any clue on?
So,
Well, I mean, and if somebody
how long you been there? How long you been?
20.
Okay,
20
yeah,
years.
that's
and if somebody went through the permit process in the past, there's no telling because it took us a decade.
that's
these through.
insane.
So this was all
That's insane.
just
that it takes that long.
hung up.
Yeah.
Everything was just hung up.
So this started, I mean, they started the actual permitting process in 2017. Kind of started with the initial design, the initial talks with the Army Corps of Engineers, kind of going through a pre-application meeting. The application was actually filed in 2018. We went through several years of just communications back and forth. There was some user group conflicts. Ultimately, that original application we had to withdraw. Then in 2022, we put in this new application with new sites, different sites. And so it's taken us pretty much 4 years to get through this process now. We were told that it was going to be sped up, and to an extent they did. We still had to get a biological opinion from NOAA. That moved relatively fast, but what they added this time around was a maritime cultural resources survey. So that's basically a side scan magnetometer survey that ships do offshore to tell us exactly what's on the bottom, every feature, and if it could be of historical or cultural significance.
That's insane.
It's crazy.
I mean, dude, I respect that, but like, what the hell? What did they give you an example of what that could be?
Like a shipwreck or
like
something
an
like
Indian
that?
burial ground or something?
All
What
of
the hell?
All of the above.
Aliens.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would be cool,
shipwreck,
but
Yep, all of the above. It is a very and when folks ask, a lot of people ask why you can't do artificial reefs here. Why? It is a very costly survey. That survey cost the state of Mississippi $350,000.
yeah, okay. I mean, that's a big
I need to
number,
get
but
in
in
that
the
business.
scheme of 14-foot skip out there with like some little dragging some shit behind it. We're good. 350.
Very,
I got my
very-
money.
Magnet fishing.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I got some.
we scanned it. Don't worry about it. It's
It
fine.
was a very
It's all
expensive investment, so like I say, it took time, and it is now moving forward. Any areas, so like I mentioned, the Petty Boy, we'll have to do the survey there. So any permit moving forward. Now that was not always the case, right? That was these surveys weren't required historically. It's been within the last.
Oh, I
several
believe
Some
it.
years.
kind of EPA.
I believe it.
So.
Yeah.
But it seems to me like it seemed like there was a big, huge block to where nothing could go through and nothing could get out. But now you got all these lined up. Is it finally getting to where we can get these permits out in a somewhat timely manner?
I think we've come to kind of realize what the order of operations is. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to get any faster,
Right.
But we do know what's coming, and we can kind of anticipate what's coming now.
There you go.
So
You've been through it
hopefully-
before.
Streamlined it.
Well,
Yeah.
he's been through it before, so now they kind of know what's, like he said, knows what's coming. You don't, get caught off guard
And
or
it
whatever.
started with the previous artificial reef director, with Jimmy, who started it. So it's gone through phases of leadership, not only in our department, but we've gone through like 3 leadership cycles in the Army Corps as well. through this
Shit,
whole
when
thing.
you're talking decade to do something, I mean, you have some personnel turnover there.
Yeah. And so, I mean, this last one at least was a little bit timelier. 4 years, at least on the state realm is not timely, but
Right.
on the federal side, that seems to be about lightning speed.
Now, help me out understand something here with the Mississippi Gulf Fishing Banks. They hold the permits to deploy artificial reefs on sites that exist already.
Yes, on all the fish havens that are currently,
Okay.
as y'all know,
They can't open a new one.
They don't open new ones. That's
they haven't
y'all's.
yet. They can. I mean, there's nothing that's stopping them from doing it. But like I say, what's now being expected from permittees is these surveys.
Okay.
So there's going to be a major cost.
So they would have to
expected.
pay that to open
Yeah.
up a new, and that's
It's
$250,000.
a dumb question if you don't know the answer to it. But could a private citizen do the same thing if they're willing to put up the
They're
money?
not going. The actual Corps is not going to permit a private individual based on insurance and liability.
Okay.
Moving forward, they're only going to permit unless, like I say, unless you have an insurance policy in place, or they're only going to do it to states.
So state agency like y'all represent,
Yeah.
but then Gulf Fishing Banks is not a state agency; they're nonprofits. So nonprofits.
They're
would count?
nonprofit, but they're the historical permittee holders.
So they got a little
Their
like,
grandfather.
Yeah, they got some. stroke there.
Grandfather, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, all right, cool. What you got next?
No, anything else?
Yeah, on that front. That's a big
That's a big
announcement.
That's huge.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. So that like I said, I mentioned I mentioned the Bollinger stuff. We've done a
Right.
couple deployments in the northern end of these new sites. So that'll, like I say, we've done in the past. We'll hold those numbers till next year, snapper season.
Okay.
So we'll hold those for a year, but we will start deploying on those sites this summer. Same thing. I'm going out for a contract to begin clearing off the staging site. So that'll probably take place. It'll take us a few months to get that contract in place. Probably a few months for a contractor to get set up, and I expect several months of deployments, just based on how much material I have.
I want people to understand, because you've said it a couple of times, but like, understand what he's talking about too. Not only do you have to get all the 10 years worth of permitting, whether it's, a new site like you just got, or even when Mr. Ralph and them do Gulf Fishing Banks to deploy on sites that exist, you got to do that. You got the permit for that. Then you got to get the material. Then you got to get a staging site, and if people don't understand, like, that's a place to hold this stuff until you can get a barge or something that that will take it out there to then deploy it. Weather conditions, like, there's so many factors that go into this stuff that all add cost.
Yeah,
right.
Yep. Cost and time.
Yeah.
Are y'all taking bids on that still?
We haven't announced it yet, so we're internally we're putting the document together. That should probably go live as soon as our legal finalizes their review of it. So within the next month or two, I would look for that to be posted.
Yeah.
For us. So.
And of all that area that you just mentioned, and if you already said this, forgive me, but what's the material going to be? Is it going to be consistent of what it's going to be that goes out there? Are you going to mix match it between opportunity and design?
So the permit allows for us to do everything that's within EPA regulations.
Okay.
And
So whatever kind of comes up.
We can do vessels,
Yeah.
barges, concrete, steel structures, anything that's suitable material we can put out there.
And is there like a thought out plan, or kind of just as
Whatever
it evolves?
happens.
Yeah.
So the first round with the funds, we're gonna kind of spread some of the material out. We're interested in seeing how soon kind of some of these fish begin to show up at these sites, and then
Right.
especially we're gonna tag. That's part of the actual monitoring phase.
Mhm.
Whenever we finish the material, so we'll tag and look at site fidelity with some of these fish over the next few years. So we are going to try to spread that out a little bit from what's already out there on FH13. Like I mentioned, these sites adjoin. They're adjoining FH13. So
Yeah.
we're going to try to push them away a little bit just to see what shows up and kind of how long and if it stays there. So that's part of the 2-year program. But we do have restrictions on these permits as well. So it's 50 foot of relief clearance. So we, on the southern portion, we'll be able to, probably it's 80, 90 foot down there, mid 90s, deepest part. So we'll have some clearance down there to put some larger vessels.
So
dry docks,
30
things.
foot from the bottom up.
Yeah.
To give you the 50 foot above
Yes.
clearance. Okay.
Yeah.
The northern part will probably be 30, 45
Yeah.
foot. So
Yeah.
it's going to be the lower,
Yeah.
the bridge legs and stuff
Yep.
like that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it. That's killer. That's a big announcement. I mean, that's good. You expanded the fishery right there.
It
Yeah.
represents a new normal for us
Yeah.
moving forward.
Okay.
This is
Yeah, I think it's a big step for the future. I think it's a good long-term investment for the artificial reef program for the state of Mississippi in general. Obviously, we've had that conversation before about removing of oil and gas platforms and kind of concentrating all of the fishing effort to the fish havens, and so this will help. Hopefully, spread that out, spread those user groups out a little bit, kind of reduce that conflict, and really just continue to enhance our fishery.
Yeah.
hopefully increasing the productivity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
y'all
hope.
are still accepting stuff, right? If you
Yeah.
have some stuff how do we get in touch with you on that?
Yeah, same thing. You can reach out to us, and we're working with Gulf Fishing Banks too. So anything that comes available, we work with them. You can work through them, or you can work directly through us. Same thing. If it's concrete stuff and we can take it at the yard, we'll absolutely do that.
Did you say what the yard was? It's in Gulfport?
It's in Gulfport off of Lorraine Road.
yeah.
Reichel. It's right there on the Seaway, down from Warren Paving. So we have a bulkhead there.
That's where y'all load the barges.
That's where
and
they'll
send them
load
out.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it works. It works well for us contractors. So
Okay. Anybody on the live watching right now too, if you got a question, drop it in the comments below, and we'll get it answered. Now's your time to ask. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and at least the hope on the public facing side of it is that folks will begin to understand that these things don't just happen
yeah.
snapping your fingers, and it's not an internal decision on us as to where we're going to put material or what area we're going to be able to permit or anything else like that. I mean, it's all an elongated process that in my mind is pretty inefficient at times.
Government process inefficient?
Takes a while. I think it's the reason why you're seeing a lot of legislation. We had it in the fisheries disaster realm, putting timelines on processing for federal agencies. We've had the permitting side, at least with, retail construction and everything else like that. They have the same kind of issues that we have in the artificial reef world. So you're seeing a big push of things need to be more efficient and need to be more timely.
Yeah.
And so we're hoping in the future it'll be that way. But for now, we have what we need to move forward, and Travis got a lot on his plate for the next.
Yeah, he does. He's going to be a busy man.
Yeah, we got some production coming up. And then last thing I'll touch on, kind of new for us, not only these new sites, but we've been working with Gulf Fishing Banks, and we've also got another private individual. We're going to look at putting a FAD out. First one for the state. We're currently trying to navigate.
Yeah, where's it going?
Navigate the permitting process. We're looking at putting it on FH13.
Okay.
So he's working through the design phase. Stephen is. It'll, like I say, this is new to us. This is completely.
It's probably new to a lot of people because explain what a FAD is, so people don't know what it
FAD, fish aggregating device. This one's going to consist of obviously a bottom anchor. Steven's looked at using a pyramid for the anchor, obviously, and then it's going to be tethered with a buoy at top.
Right.
Along the buoy, he's looking at, like I say, still in the design phase, different structures to kind of add some productivity all the way up the water column. Right. So this is very new. Like I say, very new. We've reached out to the Corps. We've had these initial conversations. We're working through the design of the actual FAD. But hopefully within the next year. And to be honest with you, I think it's called a nationwide, if I'm mistaken, because I'm not always on this permit, nationwide for permit. It's already in place for the Gulf. So we may be able to fast track that portion of this. The only thing we're going to have to wait on is a biological opinion, which is going to kind of take some time, depending on how backlogged NOAA is.
Yeah.
But there is a process, and we're not reinventing the wheel. So it's in place. And hopefully this goes a little quicker than what we've had to do in the past. I don't anticipate this to take 4 years. So our expectation is probably within a year and a half.
If this one works out, you think there'll be more?
So that's kind of what Steven's working with, wanting to maybe produce this to where they can be purchased. So this is kind of like I say, it's an initial design phase, really beginning steps. But if it works well, it would be available. For
those are money.
Production.
Yeah. Those ones in just south of Mobile that used to be there, I think they cut them off now, but studs.
Yeah.
Big fish on those. Yeah. All day long.
What? How frustrating is that for y'all? Because y'all are in the y'all are in the trenches with everything, like having to deal with all the legislative stuff and the time delays and all that. Is it part of the job and you kind of used to it? I mean, how does that feel?
I mean, for me, it's part of the job.
Right.
Like. Because, when I talk about this all the time, and, the funds, our artificial reef program in the state of Mississippi is funded zero each year by the legislators. So everything that we do, everything that we put out, we go and search for those funds. We have to find, we have to submit applications. We have to find grants. That's where the productivity comes from as far as artificial reef construction for the state of Mississippi. So I am used to going out and looking and, navigating that process.
Okay.
And it's time consuming. It is time. Like I say, we started on this phase 2 project last year and a half ago. Currently it'll be a year and a half in, and we'll eventually see the funding, but it takes time. So I'm used to it. But yes, it is still frustrating when things don't align like you want.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's just more of, we operate on a different level of logic than, some of the other groups do because we've got a different perspective. We're trying to build out fish haves, trying to build out structures, trying to grow the fishery, be more productive, whereas another group sees these things as potentially a detriment or an endangerment, not only to individuals operating, but also to potentially the animals that are out there. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration and rub gets into because, for us it seems sometimes common sense that these things are a net positive overall for the environment. We'd like to see them push through, but then there's times where I had to write a 3-paragraph justification on how manta rays weren't going to be affected in the Mississippi Sound by, some inshore structure. And it was just kind of
Wow.
some of those
Is
things
there-
pop up, and you're just like, this is ridiculous. But
Is that the Grant science nerdy version of trolling like people do on the internet? You know what I mean?
No.
Not trolling like fishing, but like trolling like let me just mess with Trevor. I'm gonna send
Yeah.
this like manta rays.
I-
He's got to answer
I do
this.
not think so.
Okay. Somebody really believed that.
100%. Yep.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Because that was good.
Because you think about it, it's folks separate from the system, right? It's the same thing we talk about with fisheries metrics and everything else like that. I mean, the only thing you're looking at is numbers on a piece of paper or a map of an area, but you truly don't know the area. You don't know the depths. You don't know how the cycle fluctuates, the general salinities and everything else like that. You're going to ask the question, and it's going to be a ridiculous question. But because you've asked it, now we have to answer.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I've asked a lot of ridiculous questions in my life, so I don't know. I don't
Does
really
it
know.
hurt the dolphins?
That's right. Do you know the dolphin? But I get that. We've talked about it on the show before. Like, one of the things that makes sense to me is the shrimpers around here. Like, that makes total sense to me. We don't want to infringe too much on their shrimping lanes. We all love to eat shrimp. They're trying to make a I know, but I'm saying they're trying to make a living. Those guys haven't caught a break in a long time.
They ain't fishing right now.
Right. But
Fuel's
so
too high.
I understand that. But
That's our wheelhouse as fisheries managers, is finding balance within the resource.
But that makes sense to me.
That does.
Is what I'm saying.
Makes sense to us, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. But like the manta rays, like swimming into a artificial reef and just destroying the whole population of manta rays. It's like, I don't know, maybe they shouldn't be here if that's really the case. But yeah. Anyway, all right, where are we going next, Joey?
Now, I guess we'll jump in. You're done. You got all your stuff out of the
think
window,
so.
right?
That's good. That's good, man.
That was good.
Yeah.
And you're the man behind all of this, and I want to applaud you for bringing more reefs.
No,
to
I
the
appreciate it.
Mississippi.
Like I say, I got a good team.
Yeah.
It wasn't a single person effort. We've put in a lot of work and time over the last few years. So
Yeah.
big things coming.
I hope that, and I said it before, I hope that in doing these episodes, I know we've learned a lot, and I hope that the audience does too, because you hear those comments sometimes with whether it's snapper or whatever the hell it is, like, oh, they just don't want us to catch any fish. They don't want us to do that. And I understand why people say that, and I probably have thought that too in the past. But talking to you guys and hearing stuff like that, it's like, it's not that simple. And y'all are fishermen too. Like, y'all have to like play by the same rules that we all do when you go out and do the same thing. So it ain't that, right?
Yeah.
And we want what's best for the fishery.
Correct.
Overall. That's the fish and the people. You know what I mean? It's not just one.
I will say
So-
this, making jokes about the manta rays or whatever, but with the way technology is nowadays, we could really hurt the fishery if we wanted to,
Oh, you could.
right? If you just
Absolutely.
took the gloves off and said, everybody do what you want. Like,
Yeah, I think
we could do some damage.
Yeah, my first episode, I think, is like snapper season shouldn't be 3 days, but it can't be 365.
Right.
That's
I mean,
correct.
that's
Because we would hammer them.
Yeah.
Or try. Not we. I don't ever do it, but
Yeah.
some people would.
So MS Creel is next on the list, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about
Tell
that.
me, are we breaking out the graphic yet, or are you going to run
We'll
first?
wait,
You tell
wait
me.
on that one.
All right, okay.
So,
all right.
Much like the good news Travis got, we got some good news on MS Creel. Really thanks to the effort of, the crew and Finfish and everybody else who's helped along the way. But MS Creel was certified for use by NOAA Fisheries and MRIP, so Office of Science and Technology. So if you thought we were the nerds, right, that's usually what we get pictured at. There's a whole nother level.
Whole nother layer of
There's a
nerds.
whole
Bigger
nother
set of
level
nerds than
that we
y'all.
don't even understand when they're
Right.
talking. So
Even
these
Even
are,
nerdier than
even
y'all.
even y'all nerds were like, damn,
So-
them are some nerds.
Yeah.
These are it's a suite of statistical consultants that are contracted out by NOAA. They review the program for its statistical validity and
Yes.
how rigorous it is, making sure all the assumptions are met, making sure you're accounting for non-response in the right way, that kind of stuff. So it's a fair amount of scrutiny, but we were ready for it. I mean, we modeled the program off of LA Creel. We try to do it in the most pragmatic way possible. We got the news back that the program was certified, so we're trying to transition to that. That doesn't mean the fight's over or, what I'll call the fight, but essentially there's a lot more work to be done. What it says is that the program is legitimate. We're doing everything the right way.
Mhm.
All the work we've done over the last 14 months to spin up a new survey, get it online, get everything operational, producing assessments, everything's been for the right reasons, and it's been done the right way. The next step will be the dreaded word of calibration, which I talked about on here many times, which is comparing the different estimates between surveys, and essentially that's to go back in time on what's existing since 1981 with MRIP to try to scale the recreational harvest estimates for all species to something that is within the realm of what we're seeing currently with MS Creel. So you might see a drop of all the estimates by a certain amount. You might do multi-year averaging to try to smooth out the time series. But essentially, we got good news. What we did works. We've proven it works. And the statistical consultants have also signed off saying it was done the right way.
Okay.
There we go.
What does that mean?
I was gonna say,
what does that mean?
All right. Now,
yeah. What does that mean?
break that down for all the
non-nerd
idiots.
terms. Yeah, non-nerd terms.
Yeah.
All right. So
Me and Joey.
Yeah.
It's able to be used essentially for management and begin the process of being incorporated into federal management. So the coming up steps are currently there's multiple different currencies out there for recreational landings. The one we're most familiar with, at least here, because people have to deal with it on a daily basis every time they make a trip, is tails and scales.
Right.
Tails and scales is what's currently written into Amendment 50, which is what gives the state authority for state management of red snapper out to 200 miles. That's where we're given the allocation. They're provided to us. We're able to fish. We manage it under tails and scales. Now, we have to make a switch from tails and scales because our intent is to move away from it and move into this program. But in order to do that, we basically have to go back to the drawing board, compare MS Creel to what the historical ACL was in, which is MRIP CHTS.
Mm-hmm.
To
That's why I made the infographic.
To then get the number that's supposed to be associated with our state for MS Creel so we can manage under it. So a lot of moving parts, a lot of different currencies, but that's the gist of it. We've got it certified. It's certified for all species, right? From spotted sea trout all the way to red snapper. But for the red snapper case specifically, we still have to go through the step of calibration, and we still have to go through the step at the Gulf Council level, at least, of putting that into Amendment 50 so we can manage under MS Creel.
You got that?
Yeah, I
totally got
that.
that.
Yeah.
Some of it.
Where does the landing permit fall in?
The landing permit falls within MS Creel. So there's a universe of anglers that we try to come in contact with MS Creel through random dial-outs. One of those universes we are assuming to be more avid. They go out on a more regular basis and fish. They also target the offshore fishery, which typically makes them, on the inshore and offshore side, more avid anglers. That universe is held by the recreational offshore landing permit holders. And what it does essentially is constrain the global universe of licenses into coastal residents, non-coastal residents, non-residents, and ROLP holders. So that the effort, when we randomly call out, the effort from the recreational offshore landing permit holders, which we assume to be higher, doesn't skew the rest of the license holders. Yeah. So essentially what we're doing...
The guy that's got a saltwater fishing license in Oxford.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That will typically maybe go out once.
Right.
It's not bleeding that effort from the high use individuals in the recreational offshore landing permit universe into the others. So it's a way of trying to increase the accuracy of the overall estimate by isolating that universe out, because we know they perform and they go out. They behave within the fishery fundamentally differently than the other groups.
Yeah. So but we're all trying to go to MS Creel. That's the thing. We're trying to get away from tails and scales to MS Creel. You just went over that. And you said that you got to compare now. So explain that process. What has to happen and for how many years till we move on?
So we did it last year. We did 1 year side by side, which is what was completed by Louisiana when they switched over. The amount of resources that goes into that is pretty heavy. So y'all were probably, every time you were at the dock, you probably saw a DMR truck on the weekend going somewhere. That's because essentially the entire Finfish Bureau was pulling double duty on surveys. They were doing MRIP surveys and they were doing MS Creel surveys. So we had double the amount that we typically had. That's the side by side. So each program is running independently of one another. We're getting results from each one of them. We provided it to the commission this past week. And essentially what we had to do is basically compare side by side, which I think we have a call in 3 days with some of the regional office folks at NOAA to talk about this subject. But it's basically to look at what is the difference between the estimates that are produced by MRIP and compared to those that are produced by MS Creel. Right now, they're a lot different.
I bet.
So I'll say our MS Creel estimate is within 10% of the tails and scales estimate that comes out, which is good. Gives us hope that we're on the right track. We're in the right realm. Depending on which strata and everything else you look at, the current MRIP survey is 5 to 10 times higher.
And that's what you don't want.
That's what you don't want. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, 80,000 pounds near about would be 400,000 pounds is what MRIP produced last year for us. So essentially that process is going through and checking all those and figuring out a way to bring them all back into the same universe. So if MS Creel is what we're moving forward with, and that's the number that we're going to, because we're not operating MRIP anymore, that's the number that's going to continue into the future. Now what we have to do is be able to take what we observed then and take it back in time.
Yeah.
So we've got a whole lot of estimates from MRIP that are 5 to 8 times higher, and we can't just plant MS Creel estimates in because it's going to make it look like, one, the stock is on a completely different trajectory, or the fishery is operating fundamentally different than what it used to. So we have to bring it down into the Creel currency.
Can I, is this a summation that's right? It's like trying to go from like metric system to imperial. Is that fair or is that wrong? When you talk about comparing data.
I would say no, because both of those are deemed to be accurate in what they're measuring.
All right, so we're still trying to determine if this is even accurate.
So,
okay.
The way Dale Diaz, when he was on the council, explained is that you're trying to take the U.S. dollar to some cryptocurrency.
Okay,
right?
That's what I was trying to say there.
So you got one that's like producing
more
wild.
volatile. Okay, that makes more sense to me.
So you got volatility on one, and you got stability in the other, and so you're trying to match between them. And for tails and scales, it was an impossible task, and we got hit hard for it.
Okay.
That's when we took the reduction in red snapper. That's the one we fought against for so many years. That's the one we tried to go forward, and we got another 20,000 pounds added to it, but it still wasn't enough to bring us back. The same kind of arguments are going to have to happen here, but given the effort that we've gone to, given the similarity between the three systems with Louisiana, us, and Alabama, I think we're on a little bit more positive trajectory in terms of getting all those estimates into one for a Gulf-wide assessment.
Yeah, because we wondered, we asked it the last episode we did with the DMR, and we talked about this, about why would we be trying to get away from tails and scales if it's working, right? And I think you just kind of answered that. Is that?
Yeah, so it's working, but also this one's working, and this one covers multi-species.
Okay.
So,
and
there's a
targeted to the people who actually fish.
Yeah. And so the balance is you've got a specific sharp tool that's fantastic, that covers a single species for in-season management and quota monitoring. But that tool can't be combined with everybody else's tools across the Gulf to be able to produce management advice for the stock. So what we opted for is, one, to relieve the burden of anglers from having to report every trip, and taking a equally sharp tool that was be utilized across all the different species that we have. Right? So are the estimates going to be as timely? No. Are they going to be as accurate? Not quite, but they'll still be good. But we'll also be able to produce estimates for spotted sea trout all the way to red snapper, which is an important thing, right? Because we need a good tool. Because
inshore and offshore,
because amberjack's coming up, triggerfish is coming up. We rarely see those in surveys. Red snapper obviously is a hot button issue. Spotted sea trout, we've been running index-based management for a while, so that's the balance. Is we only have so many resources, so much time. We don't want to overburden the anglers,
right?
So we're moving to something that covers our bases, allows us to be able to, be the managers that we want to be in incorporating recreational catch, and relieves that burden. So hopefully the best of both worlds.
We had a 1, 2, 3, 4-part comment question that just came through from Jay on YouTube. Jay, we appreciate the comment. We're fixing to get into it, so y'all help me out here. So first off thing is, he uses the acronym here, and help me out, because I'm not, what is ARS?
American red snapper, most likely.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so here's this question. Bear with me, because this is for you, I think. All right, here we go. He says, if ARS is open in federal waters, there should be a krill per person set at all states/anglers, the same if it's 2 or 4 set, this set for everyone, not the per states. I'm reading this as it's
Everyone should be abiding by the same bag limit. Is
That's
that
where he's going
in
with
federal
Okay.
waters.
Okay, yeah, that's where he's going with this. So I'm going to keep going. Have one federal quota total creel. All right. He says sync every state to open on the same exact date. All states can help with the landing data per their choice, like Tails and Scales or LA Creel, doing phone surveys, etc. He said states send their catch pounds as directed by whomever tallies this. Once the entire federal quota is met, shut down every state on the same day. No more of this, you get this, they get that. He said, how easy would that be? One quota and all anglers from every Gulf state has the opportunity to fish until the entire quota is acquired. Is that a good idea? Why don't we do it?
So it's how it operated previously before state management, right? And I think the idea is correct. And in most scenarios, what you would want is everyone on a somewhat equal playing field for a Gulf-wide stock. And that's the way it was for a while. But the problem is that the way that the landings were being computed using the federal program of MRIP, you got into this negative feedback loop, the spiral that took over the fishery, basically in the 2010s and even before. But essentially you saw where you had dwindling access and the reporting system, the monitoring system for recreational catch wasn't responding to that decreased access. We knew that there was somewhat of a derby happening. It was occurring, but the scale at which the estimates were coming out weren't reflective of the reduction in the amount of days that were there. Therefore, they kept exceeding the quota. They kept having to pay back penalty. They kept reducing the number of days and reducing the number of days. So that system was in place, essentially what he's describing previously. The fault landed at the feet of the way in which the seasons were monitored. We're in a better spot now. And I'll say, I mean, our motivation matches up pretty well with that. We don't like the idea of really, folks going beyond October 31st. I think a 75 to 90 day season is fantastic for what we were facing in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we would have had that option, it'd have been there. LA Creel, MS Creel, and AL Creel all have essentially the same currency. Also leads into that because it's all apples to apples. A pound in LA Creel is a pound in MS Creel is a pound in AL Creel. Not all these disparate systems that are counting fish essentially in fundamentally different ways that can't be combined in overall assessment. And I think I've talked about it on the show. I mean, my thought for at least the reef fish fishery, the recreational fishery, is that we should focus more on having multiple species open at the same time, even if that might take away the longer seasons that some of these states have enjoyed.
Yeah.
I would much rather see, just me as a fisheries manager, I think it would provide better opportunity if we had a 75 to 90 day season that covered the three major holidays, but also had access to gray triggerfish and greater amberjack during the same time. Because one, that will allow people for a better opportunity, a better bag. But two, it does also spread out that effort because you'll actually have folks moving beyond the close-in fish havens to be able to target those species and get the pressure kind of spread out a little bit.
Okay, that makes
So I
sense.
think that's
That makes sense to me right there.
You used to do it all the time. I mean, you go out there and you hit your amberjack first, and then you work your bait back in. You might hit your snapper at the same time. But now it seems like it's shut down right. This one ends and this one starts. You know what I'm saying?
Which would kind of make me think that would be a good thing in a way. Like if you have to have regulations, why not extend the amount of time I can fit? You're saying 70 days, 90 days, or whatever you said. Like when snapper season ends, okay, that's ended, but now I can go target this other fish. But what I just heard you say is that now everybody's hyper-focused on this particular species, then hyper-focused on this particular species. The pressure stays on one fish versus spreading it out.
Yeah, and I mean, the negative feedback loop, that spiral I talked about, is currently existent in two other species that we're seeing. One is gag grouper, which isn't much of a concern to us, right? That's a Florida-centric species. We see a handful every year. That one, in my determination, you would just have it as one within the four grouper aggregate, and it's open all year round in Mississippi. You know what I mean? Just because we don't see them rarely. The other one is in amberjack. So we talked about it this last time in the SSC, but every stock assessment on greater amberjack since the 2000s have found the fishery to be overfished and undergoing overfishing, right? Which means the stock's not in good shape. Now, if it was that way,
I can't
just
see that. Yeah,
so,
I know.
So
I know,
logically, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
think
yeah.
about it this way: if it was that way, and it's been that way for 20 years, how are there any more amberjack out
Correct.
there? Right?
We should have caught all of them.
Right. There's plenty of them out there.
Thousands.
Things are doing well. The real trouble is that one, the same problems we're seeing in red snapper when it comes to MRIP in our state with volatility, every other state sees with greater amberjack because we don't see them as often at the dock. Right? So the recreational estimates are off. If you couple that with not having a good fishery independent survey, right? There's nothing out there that's continuously monitoring amberjack in the same way year after year outside of a bottom longline survey, which fishes with deadbait on the bottom.
Right.
And that's not an amberjack survey. There's some visual surveys, but they lack coverage in the central and western part of the Gulf. We had the presentation on that recently. That leads you into the same dilemma. You're going to see that season continue to shrink and shrink and shrink, which we notably have observed. We saw bag limit changes. We saw season structure changes from August to the new. And then you got a constraint in the season again to 60 days, and now a constraint to 30. And then this past year, it was down to, I think it was open for 16 days or so.
Yeah, 16, 15.
So that's another like real-time negative feedback loop that you're seeing happen in a fishery that's not being stopped.
In my understanding, you're right on the negative feedback loop. It's the lack of people catching them that then gets reported because they don't get reported as being harvested. So then the data it's interpreted as, well, there's less of them, so shrink the season.
So
am I hearing that right?
That's opposite, right?
Okay.
So we want to put in some management measure that will decrease fishing mortality on the stock. And the only way you do that is by decreasing the season or increasing the size limit or decreasing the bag limit. And this option, what they've done is all three throughout time. The main crux, and I think where I see the negative feedback loop really accelerate, is when you start to decrease season length because your fishery dependent monitoring strategy, your program, MRIP or whatever else you're using, can't respond to that decrease. So you're seeing, all right, common sense. If you cut a fishery season by half, you should see around a half decrease in fishing mortality.
Right.
In these cases, you see none. It remains stable. Regardless of what you do to the fishery, whether you decrease access, increase size limits, anything else like that, you're not seeing really the response at the same trajectory that you would envision when you implemented the harvest strategy.
What is the response?
None.
No,
That's continued catch. You should see decreased effort and decreased catch.
Okay.
Followed by, if you had a decent fishery independent survey, you would see that you've decreased fishing mortality. So your stock is building.
Correct.
Because more are out there.
Correct.
You don't have that happening with amberjack. You don't have it with a couple of them. So that's just one of the ones where logic doesn't meet paper.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ones where we've got an entire, federal act that I detailed in a previous episode that has constraints, that has, obviously done for the right reasons, has worked over the last 3 decades to solve a lot of overfishing issues, but needs an added step of flexibility because we're at a point right now where what we're doing has shown not to work for multiple species, and we just keep going down the same hole with them and trying to figure out our way out of it once we're in the hole.
Yeah. It blows my mind with amberjack because a lot of people, even around here, don't even eat. They think they're trash fish. Okay, so we would go out and we would hit amberjack first and then hit snapper and have a pretty good little bag to run into. But you brought up, if they went from killed snapper into amberjack, nobody's going to run 75 miles to catch one amberjack.
Right.
Because that's all it is. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You can catch one amberjack and drive back home.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So if it's not on top of each other or not combined with each other, I don't think many people are bumping out to the amberjack ground.
Well, and is this kind of what you're explaining? What you just said, then you should see the amberjack population go
Explode.
way up, right? Or go up, not way up, maybe, because nobody's going to go fish them, like Joey's saying. Like the boots on the ground, they're like, it's not worth my time. No. But you're not seeing that. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I'm saying on the fishery independent side, because at the federal level, there's no real fishery independent survey outside of a visual survey called G-Fisher that exists on the Florida coast and is now expanded across to the west all the way to Texas. There's not really one that would get amberjack readily. The other ones are bottom long line surveys on the bottom with a piece of dead bait.
No.
That ain't doing it.
In Florida, they throw them back. Full of worms. Just chunk them all the way back. You know what I'm saying? It's weird. I don't know. It's a lot of science that I don't understand.
It is a lot of science.
It's bigger than my brain.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but I think we try to do our best here, at least in our spot, to try to match what we're observing with a common sense check first. Is it logical? Now, we aren't held by the same level of scrutiny and standards that are in place in Magnuson when it comes to, lawsuits and everything else like that for going over and the contention between all the different sectors and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we certainly play our part in it constantly, but we're not at that same level. So our first step is always, here's the information we have. Does this match the sniff test? Is it logical? And if it's not, we don't go any further with it. We try to figure out why it didn't.
Yeah.
Or I think on the other side, it's regardless of it, it's a scientific product, and we're moving forward with it.
Right.
Even if
This
it
is the
doesn't
numbers
match
whether you
reality.
like it or not.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna read Jay's last comment right now. He said he's watching live and he appreciates your answer. He said it makes more sense now. I like the way you think and combining more species open at the same time. We go for the love, not for the price of the meat per pound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a whole lot easier to go out there and catch 3 fish on $5 a gallon gasoline than it is to catch one fish. You see what I'm saying?
For sure. I'm just saying Jay's explaining it like it's just for the love of being out there. But I hope you hear some of the science behind it that people don't always appreciate. And even Joey and I have sat here on multiple episodes and heard it. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it at all times. But they're trying, man. It makes sense. So.
Yeah. Let's talk snapper. We'll jump into that real quick because that's always the high item. And when we posted that snapper season open, y'all made the announcement.
May 22nd,
yeah, can you tell us that? Yeah.
Friday, Memorial Day, kind of same way it's been for about the last 8-9 years.
Okay.
And it's going to run till
July 5th, so the Sunday after July 4th, and then we'll see if we have anything left over. Maybe the gas prices hold folks back. Maybe something happens in there and we get a little Labor Day
That's the
season off of.
reassessment period. I mean,
Yes.
you're going to assess it, and then if there's anything left on the table, y'all are going to throw it back.
Yep.
All right. There was a lot of comments come in. What was our number? What were we allocated this year?
82,342 pounds, which is what we had last year as well.
Okay.
So that was the one where we got cut back to 60,000 pounds through calibration. We fought back with them and tried to, play that common sense game of these estimates don't match up with reality. There's no way we could do this, all that kind of stuff. I'd say that was a valiant fight, and I think it proved a lot of points, but at the end of the day, it only got us 20,000 extra pounds.
Hey,
so
it's
it didn't.
better than zero.
It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
We got 20,000 extra pounds out of it, and now we're trying to get back to that 120 to 150. And within the breadth of that, there is going to be a meeting between all the state directors from all the Gulf states about potentially discussing reallocation amongst the states, so giving essentially us getting a higher percentage than 3.55%, which in its originality was 137,149, which is right in the ballpark of where we want to be. Now there's going to be a discussion of potentially increasing that percentage to make up for the shortfall that we've been handed over the last little while. So that's been an ongoing one. There's been effort after effort to try to get us back to that realm of that 120 to 150 mark. We've been trying hard. We've been hearing everybody's complaints. It's not for a lack of, we understand where everybody's coming from. We're right there with them trying to get that allocation back. And hopefully this will be the strategy that pays off. So we got 3 running at the same time. We've got reallocation amongst the states. We've got recalibration to MS Creel, and we've got essentially the combination of all the Creel programs into a new assessment, produce new management advice for the red snapper fishery. So we're hitting it at every angle we can. Things don't move as fast as we like it to sometimes, but that's where we are with it.
Jay dropped another one. He said, any idea on the time frame of moving to MS Creel and getting back a much larger quota for Mississippi? I'm tired of buying an Alabama and Louisiana license and giving other states my money. I prefer to stay in my backyard.
Yep. So we're actually going through the calibration process now. We've got another call. Like I said, in 3 days, 3 days with the feds on this process. Our intent, we're already 100% into MS Creel now. Basically because of the rule that's in place with Amendment 50, we are going to have to run tails and scales this year. And our I mean, I'll say it here. This is going to be the last year. I don't see us going into next year unless something catastrophic happens, or they try to do something like they did. Describe a situation this year where there's potentially a penalty to our anglers or to our state for not using the program that's in there. We certainly don't want anybody to get penalized for that. So that's the reason why it's running again this year. But the goal, yes, is by next year we would have a MS Creel allocated quota. That's what we would be operating on. And we've pushed more over the last 14 months with this program. I mean, I'd have to give props to a lot of the staff for getting the documentation together. Props to the other states for being there with us as we asked questions, as we went through the process, and then continuing to push to try to get this thing as fast as possible through the goalpost so that we can go ahead and get that positive feedback for our anglers, because that's who we did it for.
Yeah. You mentioned that meeting, and maybe I didn't catch it correctly, but there's a chance that maybe we could get allocated more? And is that this year, or is that down the road?
I think the way that entire process works, it would have to be within some amendment or some capacity within the Gulf Council, and that doesn't happen on the month time frame. Yeah. I might be wrong on that. I'd be happy to be corrected if it would go faster than that, but that is what they are meeting about, and it was discussed on the council floor for a while. And essentially the situation you have is that there's currently states that are under harvesting their annual catch limit and have been doing so for a couple of years, potentially up to the tune of 500,000 pounds. And so our thought is, if there's that much sitting on the table and we've been taken away from our opportunity,
we need to get some of that.
Then it's about time we get made whole.
Yeah.
Give me some of that back.
Yeah, give me some of that back. If y'all ain't catching it, we'll catch them.
All right. Yeah. So, I mean, for those that were there in the beginning, there was an entire argument about the disparity between season length in the opposite direction. You had, a state like Florida, which was essentially saying we don't get the opportunity that the other states have with their quotas, therefore we should be granted some allowance, or we should be constraining seasons or whatever else. Well, now that's flip-flopped, where we have 45-day seasons because we got hit hard on calibration, and the other states are having longer and longer seasons and catching less and less fish. So, there has to be a balance. And to the point of Jay, there has to be some logic in there of like, all right, are we going to put some level of threshold here? Should we be open this long? Should we have some level of consistency so there's not this large disparity in the state-by-state season or anything else like that? I think all that stuff is fair game to have discussions on.
Is there where do the Louisiana, us, Alabama, Florida, Texas is involved in this too? Where do all of those interests meet? In the sense of, is there a conference? Is there, at the
Gulf
federal
Council.
level, is it the Gulf Council only?
So,
is it, explain that to us.
For federal fisheries management, everything happens at the Gulf Council. That's where all those states and all their reps all meet to discuss all these items.
Everybody gets their opinions out and their complaints out at those meetings?
I would say so. For the folks that are actually on the council, it's a set agenda of all the different topics and the amendments and everything else they've been working on for multiple years.
They just had one at the Bow not too long ago, and there was a virtual. You could watch it and also comment. Yeah. I saw that. I wanted to watch it that way, but I couldn't.
So that's one of the opportunities for anglers to get in there. Suggestions, complaints, whatever else you want to say to them. That's where that venue is. But the council members, there's other business items. They can bring up stuff like that, but typically they're regimented to the schedule of talking points that they have and the things they have to cover, because
it's a lot of
they're
stuff,
altering like 100-page documents all at a time and trying to get everything through on the Federal Register. So
you're not going to go in there and just start yelling snapper and they're going to change it. They got stuff to do. Yeah. They got other stuff to do.
There's an agenda.
Yeah. And there's a tactful way to do it, and there's a way to bring it up. There's items to bring it up on, and I think we've done our best to try to essentially explain our argument, where we're sitting at, how the situation we're in is, not only detrimental to our anglers and our fishery to a degree, but it was detrimental because of what should have been avoided with the calibration side of things. So we got to hand it a punitive measure for something that should have never come out. We should have always stayed right where we were and continued fishing at that level. And we would have done so until we saw the fishery falter or, not have good signs of harvesting or smaller fish or whatever else, we were never seeing that. We got handed a punitive measure because of the difference in the surveys.
Yeah.
Not because of how the fishery is performing.
Yeah. Here's my last question. Did Alabama or Louisiana or Alabama get a higher purse this year or a higher poundage this year?
Like
Than
an
last year?
increase ACL?
Increase, yeah.
I don't think so.
So they stayed the same as well?
Yeah, so Alabama got cut almost at the same level we did with their calibration. And despite that, they're seeing the same length of season as they did when they had more fish.
Yeah, so they're not catching enough.
That's right. So they're not catching as efficiently. The fleets, whether it's a shift in effort or a shift in catchability or some drop off in the ability of the fleet to catch their ACL, there has been some difference there. And I think Louisiana stayed stable as well. So as far as I'm concerned, everyone's on the same thing they were last year.
Same poundage, same everything. So nobody went up, nobody went down.
Nope.
Okay.
As that only happens through calibration or some pre-scheduled rebuilding threshold that gets met. That's how that would happen. So for ours, right, we went from 137, 149 to 151, 550 between the 19 and 20 or 20 and 21. That was just a rebuild schedule where they basically bumped the OFL incrementally and it cascaded down all the different sectors.
Yeah.
Jay, again, and I appreciate this comment a lot, okay, because this is what the drum we've been beating here just between Joey and I. This is what he says. He said, I'm willing to help in any way. He said, and this was going to be a question I had to end the show for me personally. I'm willing to help in any way. He said, Joey, you and I had a long phone conversation, I'm assuming last year, right here, where we discussed all this. He said, I will educate everyone I can to make sure that they all know how much effort y'all are making. Thank you. And that's what we keep saying. Like, we want people to understand, like, if you don't hear you guys explain it like this, it's easy to just be like, y'all are going to get the blame, regardless of whether it's the Gulf Council,
100%.
the feds, whoever. We see the DMR. You guys are the ones doing all this. You have 100% authority. You make all the rules, and y'all are to blame. It's easy to think that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I hope these episodes kind of break that down and let people hear y'all's take on it, where, hey, it's like, y'all are doing the best you can to try to navigate this to make it better for us, even in competition with Alabama, Florida, Texas, Louisiana, and all that, so that we get our due allocated catch
Piece
limits.
of the pie.
Piece of the pie. There you
And
go.
that's, I mean, that's one of the things is just understanding the amount of regulation, the amount of scrutiny, and the amount of work that's on the federal fishery side of things versus the state fishery side of things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that process between the assessments, the SSC, the council, everything else like that, there's so many moving parts that most anglers lose track of what's going on, even if they try to
I'm
stay.
trying to keep up, and I still don't have it all the way down, dude.
So it's just one of those things of that process it's onerous, it's complex. There's a lot of things going on. And on the state side, we like to operate with, logic, some level of consistency, and do things to the benefit of our state and our anglers. And that's the same thing we fight for on the federal side. It's just infinitely more complex to get those things done.
Yeah, the founding fathers knew something when they set it up.
Yeah, so to wrap it up,
try to
this year's snapper season, you're still going to have to do the tails and scales and the ROLPP.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you get a random phone call from it should say MS Creel. Hopefully, it's from a 228 number.
Mm-hmm.
Those are our guys. Those are our those are MDMR employees that are doing all the call outs, that are asking you, hey, did you fish last week? You're more than welcome to tell them whatever you want. I'd appreciate it if it was,
honest.
just say, hey, I didn't fish last week. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Or I went out Thursday and Friday, and they're going to ask you where they went. That's not to try to get your spots. That's not to try to figure you out.
I got two last week because I got one from the charter side, and then I got some from the regular side.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, look, man, I wish I could fish.
Can we? We've done it before, but can we shout that number out again? So if anybody's listening, do you know it?
Yeah, we'll send it. I don't have it off the top of my head, but we'll send it.
Okay. Yeah, we've shared it before. Damn, I might even have it in my phone if it stays the same. You said, right?
It does.
I think. Let me see.
Eric's
Anyway,
got it for sure.
yeah, I think it's in my phone. Let's look right here, DMR. If I type it in, and let's just see what happens. Because, like you said, that way, if people will actually answer it, because spam being the way that it is, I mean.
Now with Apple, you got that screening thing too. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No.
The landing permit is still easy, just on your page, right? You fill out
That's
a couple
it.
things, it sends it to
Website.
you, and in the mail and rock and roll with it.
Last question. If somebody like Jay in the comments, let's see, great explanation, Trevor, way to go. Oh, here we go. Does this sound right? 228-325-1717. That rings a bell with
There you
me.
go.
Yeah, thank you for typing in. Is that Michaela? Thank you for doing that. We appreciate that.
She is one of the callers, so
Oh, so she definitely knows.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah, we got it
yeah.
on speed dial.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Michaela. We appreciate that. I forgot what I was going to say.
and then we'll still have the functioning call center. That's 523-1585. I think I got that number right.
All right.
Hopefully, that goes to Eric, who's been on here. It goes
Yes.
to Josh is about to have his first child, so he'll be out of the game for a little bit.
Congrats, Josh.
Megan, be
Yeah.
a couple of other ones. So we'll be there.
Okay.
We'll answer calls. We'll help out everybody where we can. I understand there's some confusion between all the different programs, but ROLP, Tails and Scales, when you get a call, try to answer it, and it's quick.
Yep.
Last week, where'd you go? How many times you fish? We're just getting the general info to be able to break down the effort estimates into the categories they should be in, not trying to figure out where you are.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
If somebody like Jay that was in the comments and trying to learn and wants to, be knowledgeable and participate, the average angler guy out there, what can he do other than listening to Brownwater Banter? What can he do to get the information and stay up to date? Are there any kind of DMR webinars, meetings, show up to this, read this blog, read this, anything that
I'd
they can?
say so. We have commission meetings, but generally those are topic filled for regulatory or updated items, stuff like that. So they're not usually places for information. Sometimes the best thing is just to either call. I mean,
Facebook.
all of our
Yeah.
You can send in a comment on Facebook if you like, but typically the best way to get the detailed information to try to get the answers that you're looking for is just get on the website. Call me, call Travis, Matt, Eric, call the hotline,
Okay.
recreational hotline.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
Or if we got enough questions, we can get Miss Charmaine to line us up a show. We can get everything right
yeah,
here.
that's true. Like on something specific. Yeah. Or
And
just keep.
Matt's had it in his time. He's been there a lot longer than I have. But, I've had folks show up at the office
Yeah.
hot, like
Oh,
Yeah.
ready to go. And, most of the time, we just try to make sure everything remains respectful. But
Right.
we'll sit down and talk through all this
Yeah.
stuff with everybody. Most of it for us, we deal with on a daily basis. We try to do our best to transmit the process and help everybody understand what's going on and how they can help. But sometimes that's what it takes. Just
Yeah,
sitting
and y'all
down and getting a marker board out and
Yeah.
writing everything down.
Y'all don't get a golden ticket pass or card or anything that when you go out fishing for these fish that you can just present and you get different rules. Like you
No.
have to.
No, I'm definitely
You have to
afraid.
fish the
Right now, my registration stickers have a line through them because it's on a crease, and every time I think I'm gonna get pulled over, and they're gonna give me a ticket for the
Yeah.
registration
Right,
stickers
right.
not being
You have-
overly legible.
You have
Yeah.
to abide by the same rules is what I'm getting at.
Got
So,
us too.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, as always,
Great
thank y'all.
information. Yeah,
Thank y'all
great
for stopping
information.
by in the evening time and doing this and giving us all the info, talking with us. We really, really
Especially
appreciate
your day
it.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, federal. Yeah, on a day off. Yeah. Also true too. So thanks again. Always. Can't wait to see y'all back.
Yeah,
Always.
appreciate it.
Thanks everybody for watching on the lives, the replay. The comments, everything that came through. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned something from this series of stuff that we're doing with the DMR. We really appreciate the partnership and the sponsorship with them.
Yeah.
And May 22nd is coming up. As we record this is April the 27th. So start getting your gear in line, get your tackle ready. Make sure you have the Tails and Scales app. Make sure you have the your recreational offshore landing permit in hand. It's not expensive. You can go right online and get it from the website, from the DMR website.
They mail it to you.
They mail it straight to your house. And the Brownwater Banter app has most of that stuff right inside of it, too. So download that. It's free in the App Store and on Google Play. If y'all keep tuning in, we'll keep doing them, and we'll see you on the next one.
Later.
Thanks so much for checking out the show. We really appreciate the support. If you haven't downloaded the Brownwater Banter app yet, go do it. It's free in the App Store and on Google Play. We have everything covered for a day out on the water. We've got the tides, the radar, Tails and Scales app. We've got a radio station right inside of it, and it's all free. All of our content is in there. You can listen to the show directly inside of the app. Make sure you keep your notifications turned on so you can stay in touch with us as we go live with guests in the future and plan events. If y'all keep tuning in, we'll keep doing them. We'll see you on the next one.
Brownwater Banter.